Welcome to those who are coming in. My name is Rick Strangway, and in a few moments we will officially start our Simpson conversation, and I'll introduce our guests. But we'll wait a moment here or two just to kind of get orientated. A couple of others will be joining us, and we'll be able to have a great conversation here in the next hour or so as we explore the bigger question of digital community and the local church. As we think about the Simpson conversations, the goal of the Simpson conversation is to gauge the Alliance Canada in questions or conversations that would relate to faith, life, and the practice of ministry in the local church. Our concern, our desire is this beautiful country that we live in and serve in, and our family of churches, and the desire to serve Christ and do it well. And as we've heard in these recent years through our national leadership team, the framework that has been given to us in our strategic plan is to see churches that flourish and to see pastors that flourish and to continue to move into places where the light can shine brilliantly as Christ is glorified in dark places. And then that's kind of our heartbeat. So we want to join in on that conversation when we think of Ambrose University, our seminary, and our Simpson conversations, and how we can be effective, how we can see ministry grow and flourish, and how we can consider what it means to serve. So welcome to those who have joined in. Welcome to those who will be watching a little bit later. And glad that you can be with us today. A little bit later through the conversation, we'll give a chance for questions. And I will say up front, just so you're aware, we are recording this conversation today, and it will be posted within a week or so online on our Ambrose University website. So welcome. As I said a moment ago, my name is Rick Strangway, and I play a role here at Ambrose in a few different capacities, both teach in pastoral theology, as well as serve, interface with our family of churches in different ways and continue in education and get the opportunity to host these conversations that look at everything from the pastor's theologian, which is a conversation that comes up in January 15th. We've looked recently in the month of October at the conversation of what is safe ministry in our churches. How do we begin to explore that and create communities, whether we're larger churches, mid-sized churches, new ventures? How do we create communities that are safe, where people can feel healthy, can operate and know practices that would allow them to flourish and allow the ministry to flourish? And so we try to have these kind of conversations. Today's conversation particularly is an interesting conversation, probably one that many of us have dabbled in off the record with peers, with colleagues, with other ministry leaders. And we do that because sometimes we don't know where to bring our questions, or we don't know how to enter into conversations that are maybe new as culture moves us forward. And so we're exploring the question of how do we move from digital online presence to kind of digital community and see what has happened recently in the life and the movement of the church in North America, around the world, to much more of an online presence. How do we move towards a community of believers or a community of people coming together around this engagement with the living Christ? And we're exploring that with a few experts here that I'll get to introduce here momentarily. But I'll just say this. I had the opportunity a few years ago to come to Ambrose, and I felt so privileged to have that opportunity. And it was in January of 2020 when I started. I completed my ministry in the local church after almost 3 decades serving the local church and loving that. And then on March the 14th, just a few weeks after I began, COVID hits. And I remember thinking, oh, this will be over really quickly. Maybe that was similar thoughts that some of you had. And then my next thought was, oh, I'm really glad I'm not in the church anymore, and I don't have to figure out all that technology stuff and how to have a camera set up and how to edit something and how to present it well. And then a few months later, maybe even by the following fall, I was beginning to think, oh, I wonder how churches are figuring all this stuff out, because there's a lot more to this than I had any idea. Um, it was that began kind of a journey of questions that maybe many of you had similar kind of questions and thoughts that like, how do we do this? And how do we do this so we have a greater, not only a theological vision of everything, but how do we serve the ministry of what we're trying to do in Christ's name in our church? It's that we're kind of trying to explore today. And so I'm really delighted that we have with us Cory Harasym, an online campus pastor at First Alliance here in Calgary, Alberta. We have Rosalind Coben, an online associate pastor in ministry, and joins with Cory in their work at First Alliance in Calgary as well. And then we have our president, Dr. Bryce Ashlin-Mayo, who has written, studied, and reflected a lot and kind of entered into this conversation as a local church pastor, and then led our faculty of theology as a dean through a number of different conversations. And now we're delighted that he's the president of Ambrose as he joins this conversation. So I'm going to invite each of you to kind of maybe just introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, maybe how you kind of got connected into this conversation briefly. And I'll start with you, Roz. Yeah, introduce yourselves. Let us get to know you a little bit and your role in this conversation.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I entered into online ministry. I was telling Rick and Cory and Bryce shortly before this started, after my maternity leave with my second child. And I had my baby May 2020. And I thought, well, this was a very good time to have a baby because I don't have to figure out, same as you, Rick, what to do. But when I came back, Cory and the team said, we would like you to do more social media than my previous role, which had been service producing, sitting in the tech booth for in-person services. And it was really exciting because that's something I was passionate about. And so I said, sure, but I wasn't in ministry yet. And then one day, or in pastoral ministry, one day Cory was at prayer retreat and I just had this thought that maybe I should email him and ask, would it be helpful? 70% of our online people are women. Would it be helpful to have a female pastor? And at that time that I emailed him, Cory, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in a session where they were talking about anointing people into ministry. And he said, couldn't get your name out of my head when I had sent that email about that. And then I went and spoke to other people on our staff team. And I said, what do you think about this? Like, I don't, one way or the other, whatever you think. And I remember Pastor James, our lead pastor, saying, I've been waiting for you to figure this out, but I didn't want to be the Holy Spirit in your life. So I just was waiting for him to prompt you.
That's great.
So, okay. And a few other people confirmed it as well. So thus began the journey. But it's been amazing just seeing. I've always said, like, let's the Great Commission, go where people are. Where are people? People are on their phones. People are on their devices. Of course, they're in person too, but it's such a great way to take church into the week and throughout the community. And we talk a lot about church not being a building. And so for me, that started with social media as a great way to connect throughout the week. And then adding in online ministry to that as well and taking it a step further has been such a privilege and a joy to just watch God bringing people from all ends of the earth just together. And
yeah,
it's been an incredible journey. I could go on and on, but that's how I kind of got into this. And it's been really, really neat to see God move. So,
well, grateful you're here, Roz, and thank you for this. And Cory, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Cory. Like Rick said, online pastor at FAC Calgary. My journey in pastoral ministry started at a young age when I was called into ministry to be a pastor. And I didn't have a lot of direction on how to be a pastor, what that looked like, but I knew God was calling me in that direction. And my younger years were involved. I was very techie, involved in computers. I would, in my spare time, reformatting hard drives. That's what I like to do. Just like spend a lot of time online in the digital space. On message boards and chat rooms. And my earliest interaction with online ministry was as a junior high kid in a chat room going through something traumatic as, a junior high kid. I don't remember what the trauma was, but it was very traumatic, as always. And I just remember sitting in this room being prayed over, but I just remember sitting on my keyboard crying, that someone would pray for me. And I had this digital experience of ministry and support. And so that was kind of my introduction into online ministry. Then I went to Ambrose and kind of just was like, God, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm not a youth pastor, not a children's pastor. I'm like, I don't even know. There's no pastors in my family to ask. Like, what do I do here? And I'm like, so Bachelor of Theology, Church Ministry. Sounds about right. Like that's how generic can I be? But yeah, anyways, got involved here at FAC with small group ministry. Love doing ministry with adults. I realized, that's great. I don't have to be a lead pastor to be a pastor. And from small group ministry, I started an online small group. I think it's probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I can't remember exactly when. Started this online small group in Facebook, where, it was a small group. We would post small group videos. My mom would like it. And it was just this, a very, very small community. And from there, they just one day asked if they would, this was pre-COVID. They asked if they wanted a pastoral presence online. So they asked if I would manage the live stream. And so they stuck me in, the back corner in the switcher room with the oldest, junkiest laptop you could find and said, here you go, and from there, we had nothing. And it's been really amazing watching God move in the online world as far as discipleship happening, people alive today because of online connections and relationships, and discipleship happening all around the world. And so that's me in a nutshell. Yeah, myself and Rosalind work together. We're the online team here at FAC. That her story of being called into ministry is so fun because it was the same day. Like she sent the email, God spoke to me, and I'm like, how clear can you get, with things like that? And I'm like,
That's great.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I love it. Thank you. Well, thank you to both of
meant-
you for being
Yeah.
here. I'll just, Bryce, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe if you want to segue a little bit into the conversation, I got a big first question for you as soon as you're done your introduction.
Okay. Greetings, everybody. It is great to be here with my pastors at First Alliance Church, Cory and Rosalind. They do great work. I'm so grateful for them. So those that don't know me, I'm currently the president of Ambrose. But before coming to Ambrose, about, I don't know, it's like 15 years ago now or so, I finished my doctoral work where I studied the implication primarily on social media and preaching, but expanded beyond that, of course, in my research. And nobody really cared about it. It was of interest to me, but at the time, everyone was like, that's nice that you did that. But nobody was really interested in the conversation of what does online digital look like when it comes to ministry space. And then this little thing called the pandemic happened. And I felt like everything kind of aligned, and God had prepared me a bit for that moment. And so I began, training hundreds of pastors across North America. I wrote a couple of books on this conversation and topic, and did teaching here at Ambrose and beyond in different denominations and different contexts. So just a great opportunity to be able to serve the church in a unique time, and now trying to expand that beyond, specifically in this maybe the area of post-secondary and what does higher ed look like, as we look at that space as well. So that's a little bit about who I am and kind of how I come to this conversation.
Yeah, Bryce, so I want to kind of jump in and maybe a little bit open-ended question, but as we think of kind of online ministry is maybe how my brain, when I was first kind of thinking about the local church, how did we get here? Like, how do we get to this place where this is now a very important conversation, whether we're a small localized church in a smaller community, a mid-sized church, or wherever, this is important for us to explore. So kind of simply, how did we arrive to this point where we're now exploring this with all seriousness, or maybe we have been for a few years, this kind of question of online ministry and online community particularly?
Yeah, well, I would say we didn't come on here out of a vacuum or out of nowhere. Like, and oftentimes, Marshall McLuhan, the great Canadian media theorist, was correct. We oftentimes think that whatever the new media is new, and anything old is somehow old and somehow that's beyond the conversation anymore. But people forget that there were really deep conversations happening about the telegraph, or about the written text, or about telephones, or about texting, when people used to alphanumeric text with their flip phones, or the first generation of phoning and texting, all of which people were asking similar questions that now we don't really talk about in the same way, right? Nobody questions whether it is an appropriate way to build a relationship mediated by a telephone. But people did. And people wondered, there's conversations out there, can you have a legally binding discussion on a telephone? Because is this mediated by kind of like a digital space? Or can a letter have power and authority? And of course, we would argue as evangelical Christians that the letters of Paul were read with authority, mediated by technology in the written word. Paul's not there, but it's read as if it's from Paul. People get to know and listen from Paul, or whoever else was writing the different epistles. But these pieces are not new conversations. They just happen now in a new conversation called digital technology and social media, particularly. But they don't come out of nowhere. And I think what happened was, much like anything in the pandemic, is everything got put in like a booster rocket and went about 10 years really fast. And then now, as most churches are experiencing, the pendulum swings backwards. I've done whole lectures on this in different contexts, but the challenge now is that we don't burn the ships, right? To use that old kind of phrase where you burn the ships so you can't go back. We don't burn the ships, but we use the ships to build something else. We learned lots of the pandemic. So how do we use those pieces to build, what does it look like now to use online ministry in an effective way moving forward, specifically when it comes to digital community? Because just like a party line was considered like when people phone and could talk multiple peoples at the same time, was considered like, is that real community you're experiencing? The same could be said for texting, which is also social media, or it could be used for a digital chat room or a virtual place like this, where we're all real people on other ends of this in real time and space, but interacting in real ways with other people. And I can have the same power I can have in the room largely, and I can say something to somebody and either encourage their day or bring their day down, or whatever the case is. I can uplift, edify, and I can destroy, all, as James would say, with the power of my tongue. That exists here as well. And so I think that's the recognition for us, is what does it look like? I think the other thing I would quickly say, Rick, and then you can continue with your questions, because I think this is really important. When we talk about digital community, I think it's just really important for us to always recognize in any context that community is hard and super rare, period. Like one of the dangers is the thought that online ministry, like community, is hard to build. And I would say, well, like I'm now almost 50. Here's the thing I've learned: real community is hard to build anywhere, anytime, in person, even with the group of friends who meet every day for a week. It is more rare than people sometimes think. And it's not because it's just in person, it'll magically happen, or if it's online, it somehow can't. And I think it's fair to articulate that, online, it's mediated digitally, so it might be a little bit harder to build, but it's not like if you did it in person, it would be amazing and perfect all the time. In the same way, many of our churches, we just argue that you can't have church or community online, but you can have it in person, and in person's better. And I'm like, I was a pastor for 25 years. Here's one thing I learned: people can come and not engage in any community in your church. Show up late, leave early, don't talk to anybody, don't give, don't serve, just be a consumer. You can do that equally, and lots of people do in person, just like you can do it online. And I know people who engage online, as Cory and Rosalind will share from their own examples of our congregants who come online at First Alliance. they can give, serve, share, be a part of God's mission, communicate the gospel with others online, and do so in a powerful way that many people in person don't. So I think it's just important in the conversations we set up to recognize this community is difficult to build, period. And maybe it's an extra little barrier online for lots of different reasons, but it's not like in person is a magical place that community instantly happens either. It is just a hard, rare thing that as Christians we're called to lean into and trust the Spirit for.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great setup and kind of lays a bit of a foundation. Thanks for that, Bryce. So Roz and Cory, I'll maybe start with you, Roz. Like what is online ministry, and is that even the right way to kind of describe it? And eventually we'll get a little bit more into community. How do we do it? But like just generally, what are some of the things when you describe what do you do for a living? You know, you're a pastor, okay, I get that, but what's this work that you're doing, and how would you begin to describe some of the things that are involved in this area of ministry?
How long do we have? No. Online ministry is ministry, just online. I mean, that sounds simple, but it is dealing with people. It's meeting with people. It's interacting with real people. Cory, well, I'm sorry, you're probably going to say this, but I'll just say it too. Online people are real people. And so it's just a different medium of doing ministry. And so anything that an in-person pastor does, I think we do that just different ways. So a great example is we did a home blessing online last week because the roads were terrible. And the lady said, you know what, just stay home, let's do it online. And we went, okay. So that was a first.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I run a ladies small group on every 2 weeks. We meet on Facebook Messenger video chat. And that's been really cool because there's actually been in-person implications as well. So these ladies joined and 3 of them said, we don't actually have any in-person community. We don't know who to sit with when they go to an in-person service. And the 3 of them actually connected in person. And they now are like, they're actual, you know, they've begun this friendship online, and that also translates in person because the two are not separate. Online and in person are not separate. We have online community that is strictly online. They don't live in Calgary, or if they do, they can't come in person for whatever reason. But we also have a ton of people that are both in person and online attenders. They engage online throughout the week, or, you know, there was a snowstorm last week and we were the largest campus that weekend. You know, it's impossible to separate the two of them. And I think that's actually one of the beautiful things about online ministry is it's the consistency throughout the week, because maybe we don't get together in person all week long, but we do. I would say, I think Bryce, like you just said, community is hard no matter how much, whether it's in person or online. But I think the online thing that's great about online is that we actually can connect throughout the week. So this ladies' Bible study that I lead, we have a group chat all week long. And so there was a lady that needed some meals. She was going through a hard time. Guess who showed up to deliver her meals? Because she was posting in the online chat. Cory met a lady, or Cory saw a prayer request on our online prayer wall for a woman that was going through a really hard medical thing. And I was able to reach out and meet with her on FaceTime. And she had a doctor's appointment today. So we've been following up with emails about that. And it's like, to me, that's online ministry. It's hard to put it in a box, but it's just, you know, being the church on all, however that looks online, and using the mediums that we have available.
Cory, would you add anything to that? Just kind of the basic question of like, what is it? And thanks, Roz.
Man. That was really good. Online ministry is ministry online, right? That's like using the tools. I think that's so good because we have, I think in church world, sometimes, you know, we've limited it to a Sunday morning service, you know, where people catch up and they meet up. Maybe, you know, in some places it's Wednesday night and, you know, here and there. I think the fascinating thing for me about online ministry is it just, there are no boundaries. It's always open. People can share prayer requests in our group in the middle of the night. And what I've actually loved about online ministry is it's actually released to me as a pastor to be the one to respond to everything and feel like I'm the one that has to pray for people. It's so beautiful watching the church come together and lift each other up. We had someone post in our Facebook group just some really negative things. They were just going through a difficult time. Uh, in less than a few hours, 3 people from our church showed up at her house, did 7 loads of laundry, and cleaned the whole place.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm like, I can't do
That's
that.
cool.
There was no way I was going to go to her house, but they didn't even have to go through a pastor. I mean, obviously there's challenges that we face with boundaries, and I can't always be on. But it's like it's utilizing all the other hours of the week that you don't have to wait till Sunday to find out someone's in the hospital. They can share with you, and then you can respond. So in that respects, the ministry of online ministry is always it's always happening. Why? Because life is always happening. And so what does it look like as a pastor to step into people's lives, not just on a Sunday or at the Bible study, but being open and available, within reason, but also what does it look like to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, that they can serve each other, that they can pray for each other, that they can minister to each other, kind of like Razi was sharing about this people were alone and they connected. I had a great story of someone who wrote in the chat on a Facebook Live, I don't go to church because it's big and I'm always alone, right? And so someone said, oh, well, if you're alone, like they actually reached out and said, well, if you're alone, I'll sit with you. And I just remember walking into church in person and someone called my name. And it was these 2 ladies that met through chat and were sitting together in person. And I was like, that's cool, right? So I think to be simple, I think what Rosie said is great. Online ministry is doing ministry online.
Can
Jump
I
in. I see. Go ahead, Roz.
I just was going to say too, the nice thing about social media, I know we hear a lot of things about like, oh, now everybody has a voice, but that's actually awesome. Everybody has a voice now. And so the people who maybe they don't feel like they can walk up to a pastor and say, I'm really struggling with this, because they don't have the language to do that or whatever. They can post in the Facebook group and they can ask for help digitally. And it also gives other people a voice, and it almost helps them feel empowered to reach out and pray for that person. Or those ladies that showed up to clean, they felt like they could do that because they had this sort of agency via online that people get when they interact online. So anyway, just thought I'd mention.
And
Yeah,
I just want to jump in on there. Because Bryce threw out this word barriers. It's a great word because sometimes there are in-person barriers for people to join in person, and we've seen that with online ministry where just a few examples of we had someone join us online, was a refugee in Malaysia for 5 years. So he joined us online for 5 years before he came in person, and we were able to greet him, and he knew people here in Calgary. We had someone join us online regularly from the hospital for 4 months, going through chemo, and then came in person. And do you know whose faces he recognized? Yeah, because it's like we're there. We're just always popping up on the live stream, hosting, welcoming, engaging with people. And there are people who are currently not here in Calgary that are joining us, or who are still sick at home, and or just can't make it. And I think that's kind of where like the barrier to entry is actually pretty low as far as being able to connect online. And I find that people actually share their hearts a lot faster. We go deeper, quicker, and we open up more. And I don't know why. That's something to look into. But when we're in person, we have this, no, I'm going to use the word facade of just like, yeah, everything's okay, I'm good. Online, people are like, no, this is, my life is terrible right now. Like literally, I want to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to respond.
Yeah.
And we do. Anyways, so yeah.
No, it's excellent. I love, it's been so, just listening to the conversation, hearing the practical examples, the relational examples kind of takes us where I'd like to go next a little bit. And all three of you feel free to kind of jump in on this question, but I'll set it up this way. I think, and for many of us in the local church a few years ago, it was a little bit maybe, how do I get how do I get the sermon out online into the World Wide Web, and so people can listen and feel they are a part of the church service. What you have so clearly demonstrated, just naturally through the multiple examples, is this is about kind of an open space where real people, they just happen to be online, are engaged in relationship, and that's really obvious. And so my question would be this for the three of you: what are the kind of basic things and that we can be doing to create community online? Like how do we kind of begin to think about this? What are some of the practices? What do we need to be attentive to? And then I might even kind of throw out and keep it in the back of our mind. Let's say I'm in Kindersley, or I'm in Humboldt, or I'm in a place where, like, hey, I have a multiple kind of things I have to do with my time, my week, my elders board, and so on. How can I get started? So big question is, how can I begin to think about this ministry that I might have already and build community? Anyone want to start us off?
Can I
Cory.
start us off? Yeah, because it feels like there's two parts there. The first part is I always like to use this example. If someone walked into your church building and said, hello, what would you do? Would
Yeah.
you walk away?
Ignore them completely.
Ignore them? What would you do? You would greet them. You would say hello. And I think when you start thinking in a digital, like with a digital context and mind frame, you can understand that a lot of it translates into digital worlds where,
So are you
to me,
suggesting that all those texts I get that from people I don't know with that I'm supposed to say? No, I'm joking around.
but hey, that's Rick, that's good though, because you know what? We actually deal with a lot of that. And when we say every
And I would argue we deal with a lot of that in person too, because guess I was a pastor. Lots of people just stop in to offer their solicited attention, and most pastors actually typically try to be somewhat warm and hospitable, but you have to filter those out too, right? So in person, you filter out those things too, those unsolicited
yes.
Walk-ins.
But also, and you never know, like that's what's so fascinating about any relationship that you engage with. You never know what the Holy Spirit is doing in this person's life. And so we have a kind of a saying here, joining Jesus in the renewal of all things. We know that Jesus is at work and we are joining him. So the question is for us is we're listening to Holy Spirit and saying, what are you doing? What are you saying? What is it? Do I need to engage with this person or do I need to not? Or I think when you, with every person as a real person, it's like we actually, if someone walked into your church building, no matter who they were, like you are going to give them attention. And so that's kind of where the online world gets pretty wild when you think about how many voices there can be. But on the simple practical note of what are some basic things, understanding that online people are real people. If someone says hello on a comment, like for us, we open up all comments, whether you're trolling, because trolls need Jesus. So trolls are people that are there to, make fun or whatever. But it's like we are there to engage with every message, every comment, and to engage with people because we're doing relationship. And so I think from that, it's kind of understanding what is your scope, whether it's, your Google business ad, maybe it's your Facebook page or whatever, and starting to engage people in that way. So that's some basic things. That's part one, but I'll leave it open for others who want to jump in there.
Yeah, how do we, the question is kind of sitting here on the floor, is how do we begin to create community with an online presence?
So one thing if it's okay, I'll jump in. I think it's incredibly important, whatever you decide to do, and that could be starting a Facebook group for your church community. That could be setting up a weekly Zoom call. We do something called Wednesday Noon Prayer, which is Wednesday prayer at noon on Facebook Live. Call it what it is. We have a bunch of touch points throughout the week, and that's not feasible for every church community, and we get that. But if you do want to start doing online ministry, you have to do it. So that means just streaming the service. I would say that's not enough. You have to have somebody designated to be in the chat, and maybe it's not a pastor. Maybe it's a volunteer, but then, if they get a question that they're not equipped to handle, then they reach out to the pastor. If you want to start a social media account for that, have somebody designated that gives time to that, because it can't be something that's just kind of an afterthought, because people will know that and they won't feel valued. Just like if you treated people like an afterthought, they'll know and they'll leave. And that doesn't, I would say social media, online, that's our first impression. So maybe these people will attend in person. They're not going to if they feel like an afterthought online. So if you can't do it well, I would say don't do it. send them to FAC. No, I'm just kidding. But truly, just if you're going to decide to do it, pick one thing that you can manage, and maybe that is a Facebook group. Maybe that is a WhatsApp text thread, depending on the size of your church. Maybe that's setting up a Zoom call every week, or going live on Facebook and interacting with the comments there. But just do it well. Pick one thing, do it well.
That's good.
My thinking of this is just maybe the phrase that when we have thought about social media, particularly from the church, or online digital ministry, we often default towards content rather than community. But the church has plenty of content, like the church Big C. Like we at some point we are so we're gluttonous for content. We don't need a whole lot more of that. What the church needs and what discipleship needs, and digital discipleship, is more and deeper community. And I think that's the piece that I always encourage anybody who's considering online ministry to do, is spend the time you would have spent to create content and use it to build community, because that actually is what social media is best designed for anyway, and what people are longing for more than they're longing for more content, because they can receive that in so many different places. And not to diminish that, content's important. And I would say make your context contextual to your community, use it to build community, not just to connect out. So I think those are the pieces that I think are key when it comes to your step into it. Just make sure, even when you're creating content, you're creating it in a way that's proprietary to your community. It's unique to them. You use it as a way to build a deeper sense of community among people who are gathering online, because that actually is the genius and the potential of social media and digital, more than it is just simply content.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that, and that's kind of helpful to kind of keep thinking. Anyone else want to add to it, or I might push on to some practical. Yeah, Cory, jump in.
I want to add, because I think, just to jump off what you're saying, Bryce, is like sometimes we get worried, like, oh, they can attend Saddleback and blah blah blah, all these things. But the people who are attending online and connecting with you online, most of them are actually a part of your community. Mm-hmm. And they actually want to connect with you. When COVID hit, everyone was like, they were all worried we should change our service time, change it all up. And I'm like, no, actually, because it's like, shorter attention spans on YouTube, all this kind of stuff. And I said, people actually want what they're comfortable and familiar with. And if we go ahead and change everything that is about us with our weekend service, we're just going to lose people. People want to see their pastors online. They want to connect online. And I think that's kind of understanding that people love you as their pastor, and they want to connect with you.
I always say, like, one of the misunderstood nomers of digital ministry is that most people assume that it will platform your kind of celebrity speaker. And like, I can't do online ministry because I'm not this celebrity person or this amazing communicator or whatever. And I always argue that actually this is the season for the shepherd pastor, to shepherd people online. That actually is the greatest potential of social media. And so like, if you're even a small church pastor and you have a shepherding gift, actually you have the key gifts to lead an online ministry space in some of the most fruitful, effective ways, more so than the person who can get up and communicate to 10,000 people and has a massive platform. Not to diminish that, some people are gifted towards that. That actually isn't, I think, the greatest potential of online. The greatest potential of online is the person who can build community, have relationships, shepherd people. You're just doing it on an online space, and that actually has the greatest potential for kingdom change online, in my perspective.
Because
That's good.
I think what we're seeing here is that broadcasting, like anyone can broadcast.
Yeah.
Truly, if you have a smartphone, you can broadcast, you can live stream. But it's like, what does it look like, as Bryce is saying, to shepherd, to care, to disciple people online? We go down to one-on-one. That's in our world. We truly focus on the one-on-one. Who's ready? Who is the Holy Spirit bringing into our community? And we jump into that. So I think it's great, Bryce.
And the thought of broadcast space is a mass media understanding of digital space, which is not a hyperlinked internet, deeply connected community medium, which is online ministry. That's best done in community and relationship and shepherding. And it's a way people just sometimes think, I can't do it because I can't, our church doesn't have the ability to do this big spectacle. We can't compete with Elevation Church or North Point or whatever, list your mega church. You can't, and you shouldn't. But you can connect to the people in your community and in a unique and powerful way. And that's actually the greatest potential this season.
Okay, Roz, I'll get you to, I saw you wanted to jump in on this, but I just want to pause for a quick second. Just if anyone has a question that they want to specifically ask, we'd love to be able to respond to it here in a few moments or two. And maybe I'll even say to Roz, Cory, and Bryce, if you have any resource that you'd suggest, Bryce, would you even put in the chat the title of your book, your most, any of your writings? I would value that, but that's helpful. Or if someone wants to reach out to me at Ambrose, I'd gladly pass on these resources as well later in an email, and just to be supportive and kind of help you out. But Roz, you wanted to, I think, say something a moment ago, just in this kind of practical side of shepherding and caring, maybe?
Yeah, so this is a new thing we're just starting. So FAC has multiple campuses now, and we've got a campus that's Portuguese, we have a Spanish campus, we've got Southwest campus, and we have a Deerfoot and online. And one thing we've just recently realized, as we've now got all these expressions of FAC, is how can one social media manager, me, and one Facebook and Instagram page, how can that serve and shepherd all these people? I don't speak Portuguese. I don't speak Spanish. I don't know what resonates with those communities. So I'm trying, but I'm using Google Translate, and it's probably not right. And, and so what we've recently done, and I mean recent, like last week, was launch pages on Instagram and Facebook for each campus with volunteer managers who are interacting and caring for the people in these communities. And it's so new, but the idea is that these people in the Southwest campus, they're going to talk to the people who manage the Southwest campus social media for, when is this event happening? How can we do this? I need prayer for this. And that develops their community rather than me. I don't know who they are because I don't go to that campus. How can I help them with that? And so it's it's almost making it into like smaller groups of people so that it's less corporate. It's more personal. First of all, they get the information that just they need, but also they get the connection with, somebody at the Southwest campus will reach out to the Southwest team and they'll know the person that they're talking to, versus if it's me, they might not know me. And it's way better for building community and discipling these people. So that's a new thing. So we'll see if it works. This is all in theory. I think it will. We'll see.
No, but I hear this theme here in these last few minutes about just in all of you and all the examples and what you're suggesting is just the practice and the work of pastoral ministry in a localized context. And again, like that is so helpful, I think, and accessible for all of us who are continuing to think of how can I take another step, or how can I enter into better utilizing what we are doing, and what two or three of you have said as well, is empowering others so that others are involved in this community, kind of the priesthood of all believers. I want to take, just we'll try to end roughly at the top of the hour. But I'd love it if Roz and Cory, over the years, I've heard a couple of you, both of you speak, and just give some cool examples or a story or two of things that have happened there at FAC in the online ministry. Because today I've heard you talk about it's not just the online presence and the community that you're building, but it's also an extension of it becomes in person, it becomes face to face as you've gone to someone's home to care for them. And so I know of a couple of stories you've shared in the past. Would you mind just sharing kind of some of the things that you've seen done, or you maybe a baptism or something like that? I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, go, Roz. Sorry, I should have picked on one of you first.
Baptism was the one that came to mind. Have any of you seen an online baptism before? Okay, Bryce has. So we had this person reach out to us, and she was diagnosed with, spoiler alert, she was diagnosed with cancer. It was thought to be terminal. She is alive and well today, which praise the Lord for that. Mm-hmm. That was a true miracle. But at the time, it was terminal cancer, and she wanted to be baptized because she was looking at her last few months of life. And so she said, I can't come in person, but if somebody could come to my house and baptize me, that would be great. She's part of the online community. She's always in the chat. And so myself and Pastor Heather Brown, who's also on staff at FAC, we went to her house, and we asked, can we live stream this for the FAC online Facebook group? Because I think your community would love to see this. And she said, yeah, that sounds good. I would love to. So we went to her house and we baptized her in the bathtub. And it was so cool because the community was live in the chat responding like, yes, so happy for you, awesome. Like cheering her on. And then just personally, her house is right by my hairdresser. So every time I go to get my haircut, I think of her. So I text her and we've kind of been able to email back and forth. And at Easter this past year, she showed up to the online room and I didn't recognize her because all her hair had grown back and she just looked so healthy. And I said, what happened? She's been healed and it's been so cool. And just incredible to that all started because she was part of the online community. And I don't know, where she would have, who knows what would have happened in terms of getting that community and feeling that connected throughout that difficult time. But that was really impactful for me to see her and be a part of that. That's really awesome. That's cool to see the extension of ministry. Cory, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Do I have anything that I want to add? Okay. A few kind of examples that I've seen some of this play out that have been really kind of exciting is just in online world, we connect with a lot of people who have mental health challenges and anxieties and dealing with depression. And it's been really cool watching how the online space has been a connecting point throughout the, honestly, years for some of these people to where you could see their journey of healing and growth happen to where some of them, start coming in person. And we know that's not the case for everyone, but like I was saying, there's one person just sharing a lot of her difficulties in this group. And over the years, she attends Alpha, it's attending the women's ministry, and you saw her posts change, you saw her words change. And that was kind of really fascinating for me. It's just you're just watching someone grow closer to Jesus, and she's sharing Jesus with her family, and it's truly amazing. I'll just quickly share something that's a little bit kind of out there is we've started doing Zoom services. And so This is a Farsi speaking service. It actually just finished. We do it Tuesdays, and it's online via Zoom. We do recorded worship, sermon, and prayer. And so connecting with people. So FAC is a refugee sponsorship agreement holder, meaning that we help people, refugees, come from Turkey, come to Calgary, and we have a really big Iranian Farsi speaking community. Anyway, so connected with these people who joined us online, and we started an online service, and we've had four baptisms in Turkey that are part of this community. We've done communion online via Zoom with a mullah, which is a Muslim, used to be a Muslim pastor. So he actually joins us regularly. We ran Alpha online in Farsi with 15 people living in Iran and Turkey and surrounding areas, and people giving their hearts to Jesus, praying for them to be filled with the Holy Spirit, all online. And so a lot of these people can't actually leave their homes, or it's really difficult to travel. But it was, so that's kind of just a few examples of what connection has looked like. They are connected to FAC, even though they live in Turkey or Malaysia or Iran, and we're building relationship, building community. This is one thing that to me, I don't know if you remember back in the day when you'd gather Sunday evening with your missionary, because we called them missionaries, right, international workers, and they would share slideshows, and you would pray for the persecuted church.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm on a video chat with the persecuted church in Iran. We're praying for Shahara, we're praying for Netta, we're praying for Emran, we're praying for Asal, we're praying for Meritage. Like we're praying for people. We're praying for sons who are in prison. And so for me, I'm like, this is amazing when I think about pastoral ministry and what Jesus is inviting me into. Jesus is already at work. We know that. We know that he's at work in the Middle East. So Jesus inviting us to join him where he's already at work, building relationship, praying for people, pastoring and shepherding people online. It's amazing. So anyways, those are just a few quick examples of what online ministry has looked like as far as reach locally, but also globally.
Would any of you, thanks to Cory, Ross, thanks for those examples. I know there's many more, but I want to respect the time, and I want to give each of you kind of guests here a chance to kind of have a final thought. But Ron Baker has posted a question just on online communication channels that have been kind of standing out. Does anyone have a thought or a response to his question? With so many online communication channels, are there any ones that you see standing out? And as we strategize or prioritize various platforms or channels, what should we be thinking of? Maybe is there a quick comment on that?
I know Rosie will probably have some thoughts, but for me, it's understanding where people are connected, where your church family is. For us, it was Facebook. We had a huge Facebook, population online. So we started kind of investing into like Facebook groups, the channels, kind of building community online, live streaming, and just kind of building in that way. For the Farsi community, it's on Telegram. So we have a Telegram channel of connecting, because that's for the person there, she informed me that's their communication channel. So a lot of it is kind of just understanding where your people at. If your congregation is 35, 40 plus, they're probably on Facebook, and you know it. You're probably and that's just kind of, especially in Alberta or North America, like a lot of people are on Facebook channels. And I think just start utilizing where people are, understanding where people are engaged at, like Ross said, WhatsApp, whether it's starting a WhatsApp prayer chain, that actually all counts in my mind, at least. Yeah.
Roz, do you have anything to add on that quick?
Very similar. Yeah. And just think you're very unlikely to get people to go on a platform that they aren't already. So like Cory said, find out where they are. our Portuguese congregation, they are quite young, so they're not really on Facebook. They don't really use it, but we're trying to get them to, because now we've adopted them recently, so they are part of FAC, and we're trying to say, like, we are all, like, it's an older, not all, but it is an older community, and so you need to get on Facebook. But they're like, we don't really need it. We're all 35 and under and on Instagram. So find out where they are and go there. Like Cory said, Jesus is already at work. Where is he at work? Is he on Instagram, Facebook? He's on all of it. But he can be spoken of on all of it. And so where are they already? And go.
I love that. And that's maybe a good, like, just for our general questions here, a good place to kind of end. And just a reminder that you've both given us, Roz and Cory, that Christ is at work in this world and we participate with him. You've reminded us, Cory, 2 or 3 times to listen to the Holy Spirit, both in should I engage, how do I respond, and so on. And to reminder of just this is an extension of the body of Christ, as Christ is at work in the world, and we are reflecting his beauty and his goodness in the world. I'd love to just kind of give each of you just a moment to kind of, is there a final thought that you would add, a final kind of comment or an encouragement as someone who's maybe just trying to explore, but just, yeah, and I'll end with Bryce, because I got another question for Bryce at the very end. But yeah, Cory or Roz. Roz, could you start us off? Final thought?
Sure. It's something I want to reiterate for people is that online ministry is not all that different from regular ministry. And so if you're already in ministry, it translates online, because these are people. And so it doesn't have to be scary. And I don't think you have to get caught up in strategy. I think you just have to engage with people. And so, sure, like, I work in social media a lot. So yes, there is some sort of a strategy. But as far as it goes for pastoring people, shepherding people, you don't need a strategy for that. You just need to go do it. And that means just making yourself available, interacting with people where they're at, and remembering that there is a real person on the other end of that phone or whatever. And also that God is so creative. There's so many different ways that I connect with people that I guess you would consider online. And one thing that comes up a lot that we hear is online ministry kind of has like is it really ministry? I don't know. Like, is it bad? Is it good? But one thing I heard Dr. Colin Toffelmeyer say, he was at this talk that our church had for women in ministry, but I think it applies, is the fruit good? What is the fruit of online ministry? And in my experience, it's good. It leads people closer to Jesus. And so is the fruit good? Yeah, most of the time it is. Yes, of course, there's going to be keyboard warriors who are not very nice, trolls who are not very nice. But like Cory said, they need Jesus too. And so how can we be the light in that community, and let's cultivate good fruit through online ministry?
Cory. Did you have a final thought? Final word, Cory? Sorry.
My computer's a little bit slow there. Exactly what Rosie said. No, I just I don't know. To me, there is a lot to take in, so it can be overwhelming. And my encouragement is just to be still before the Lord, to wait patiently for him in this, and just to lift it up in prayer, and know that, again, if he's doing the work, if we're listening, if we're attentive, if we feel like this is something for our community specifically, that he's going to bring people, that he's going to give you fresh ideas or new ideas or ways to engage your community and shepherd and care online. So I think, so just trust Jesus. I know it seems like a simple thing, but it truly is. Yeah, like we trust him. We trust him with our ministries, with our people that he places along our path. And so my heart is that, as in the Alliance, that we would just be aware of this opportunity of connecting with people all around the world. Like, to me, that is kind of, to me, what gets me excited is in what realm could me, Cory Harasym, from born and raised in Edmonton, go to Turkey, or let's say Iran, and sit in a group of people and pray together.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen in my lifetime. But here we have technology that has allowed, a group of 20, 25 people to gather together. And I can speak in English and they can read, they can hear it, they can speak in Farsi with, translate captions, and I can understand what they're saying. Like there's a way to gather together now online where there is no border. I mean, there is some restrictions, but I'm like, I've spoken to people in Iran, and I'm like, this is just mind blowing. So more than I can ask or imagine. So I'm like, let's go.
That's great. Bryce, I'd love if you'd kind of have a final word, but I want to throw this question out just first because, and I realize that this could be a whole nother discussion easily. But how does this whole conversation? Because you've in the last 5 years gone from the local church and 25 years of carrying that shepherding care, gone into the dean that's given oversight to the seminary here at Ambrose and the School of Ministry. How does this conversation impact the way we need to train pastors, think about pastoral ministry as we kind of move ahead? And again, I'm asking a big question, and we're at the top of the hour. But because you're amazing, I'm sure you can bring us, give me something that I can put on Twitter. That's all I'm looking for.
I'm feeling it. I'll give it my best shot in like 2 minutes or less. I would say this on the first question. My final thought would be to embrace the long arm of the church, embrace the long arc of the church. There was a time in history where the church viewed the thought of pastors owning books as a deep danger and with lots of skepticism. Right. And now I have a bookshelf behind me. All of you do too. And we wouldn't imagine doing ministry without books, because what would a pastor going to do if they own the Bible? Like, what are they going to do if they start to do their own research and look into theology on their own? Right. That was the power of the technology of the book. And yet we've figured that out. We've adopted it. Now it's a part of everything we do. And now we even write them. Right. And now that we like, it's changed everything. That took hundreds and hundreds of years. So like, recognize the arc is long, and there's many things on this little small phase of the arc. This is the small one. AI will be another one. All of that's coming right around the corner. That'll be another whole discussion. But that piece, just like, have a sense of not anxiety about the present or the future, but a sense of like, this is a long arc, and Jesus will lead us in the midst of it. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing I would articulate is like post-secondary higher education, particularly on theological education. I think digital ministry will do the digital dynamic will do two things to higher ed in general. Number one, it needs to figure out how to adapt and use technology wisely and effectively for the nature of education, just like it is doing in the church, for two different reasons. One, it makes it more affordable and accessible for folks. That's the first key piece. But second, it's also because that's actually the world in which all these pastors are going to go lead. It's not like they're going to go do it this way and then they go learn maybe in a digital environment or partially in a digital environment and then go lead in some place that doesn't use digital. It's going to be the world in which they're going to pastor and grow and teach, and it's also the world in which they're living. So it makes sense that they would learn using that technology to some degree. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing that is important to recognize is that one of the uniquenesses of digital is it's shifted the nature of institutions to have to need, I think, with a need to make contextual community in context where people are. Because as much as, like, for example, our seminary is a good example of this, the majority of our seminary students do their studies online and live in a variety of different places. And actually a good chunk of our seminary students live like 3 blocks from here and yet choose to come online because they don't want to walk in the snow or whatever the case is. But then we also have students who live like 3 blocks from another seminary that they could go in person, but they come to our seminary either because of our professors, our programs, or our denominational distinctives. So the interesting thing about the where our world is now is denominational or affiliate seminaries are more, I think, like are more relevant than they have been for the last 20 years with regionalized education. It's changed that barrier, and something as Ambrose we need to lean into is what does that look like for us to recognize that that's actually an advantage. And I know just like the Alliance Canada, since this is part of this conversation in this room, I'll say this. Just as there was a sense back in the day where we would send all our people to Regina, to CBC, CTS, they would get infused with DNA because everyone sent them there, and then they would go. Like those days are over. Like no one's going to be able to replicate that because people don't travel from around the world to go to education anymore. But online education can reshape that, where people can more stay in connection with their local church. They don't have to leave that to go to come to a different institution. They can learn and grow in online space in a community as they're learning and growing for sure, and do that with a denominational perspective. And that can be a key piece of that DNA forming that used to be in a residential school, but can actually exist in many ways in an online framework, in a context, an affiliate kind of tribal way that online social media, that dynamics can help create. So interestingly, we're kind of back where we were. It just looks differently in that space. So it's shifted that a little bit in theological education. And I think you'll see us and other institutions adapt to that dynamic moving into the future. Because not only will we need to, but we have to, because our students are going to go live in that world. They're not coming to Ambrose to not go back into a world that's somehow digitally influenced. It's the world in which they live. So hopefully that's maybe a 3 or 4 minute answer to a 2-minute question. But
yeah, no, and it gets us all thinking. And what I hear maybe in that last few comments that you made too is one of the beauties that the opportunity in front of us for those involved directly in theological education is to work with and keep the church at the center, Christ and the church at the center, where students can be there and be a part, participate in the local church in the context. And still then have access through education, which is kind of a cool shift in ways that God might be working. Well, let me wrap this up and first of all say thank you to each of the guests, to Bryce, to Cory, to Roz. Love your heart, Cory and Rosalind, your shepherd's heart, your care just kind of comes out so significantly. And I think it can translate in just the practicality of the way you spoke and shared and some of the suggestions you gave us to get started and think, just so practically in whatever context we're in. And some of the practicalness and the big picture stuff, Bryce, thanks so much for bringing your wisdom. I'm going to speak for all three of you, even though you didn't get I'm not giving you the chance to respond right now. But if you'd like to reach out to any of them, Cory or Rosalind at First Alliance here in Calgary, or Bryce, or myself, if I can help make a connection, feel free to do that. Because oftentimes it's these opportunities that lead to another conversation with someone like Roz, who's doing it every day, and kind of like, can you just help me walk through something that can be real practical and helpful? So be sure to reach out and do that. Cory's put his email there in the chat. I'll just make this note before I say goodbye. Thanks for being a part of this conversation. Those who listen later, those who are here today, we're grateful for that, and grateful to kind of serve the Alliance in Canada in these kind of conversations. On January 15th, we have Lydia Stays and Parker Friesen from Prairie Alliance Church in Portage Prairie and Nipawa, one of the sites there that Parker gives leadership to, that are join us in a conversation with Dr. John Coots on how do we continue in the local church as pastors be theologians, and is that still needed, or can I just download everything I need from First Alliance and figure it out from there? And so how do we keep shaping ourselves as pastors, shepherd pastors who are in the world and giving good theological thought? So that's our conversation on January 15th. Welcome you to join us again. Blessings, and thanks for being a part of this.